Welcome to Art with Mrs. Cap, where we are going on a journey through the world of art and the many histories and cultures that influence it. Whether you're a kid or a kid at heart, wanting to learn more about the art world, this is the podcast for you. So join us as we journey through art with Mrs. Cap. Welcome to today's episode. So we're going to be talking about a very famous work of post-impressionism art. We've talked about impressionism before, but today we're talking about post-impressionism. So what was post-impressionism? As the name kind of clues us in, it was a reaction to impressionism, and it followed impressionism. So post-impressionism. It came after impressionism. Now, as we've learned before, impressionism was very much focused on naturalistic depictions of light and color, and it was really caught up with the impression of those things. Whereas post-impressionism was more of an abstraction of qualities. It had more symbolic content, where impressionism was more of just a landscape painting form in a different way, where it was more of an impression of what was seen. Post-impressionism is more abstracted, and it has that more symbolic, like there's more meaning to what you're seeing instead of it just being the focus of light and color. And so that's why we see this shift in style. So the post-impressionist art movement was a French art movement that took place roughly between 1886 and 1905. It started with the last Impressionist exhibition to the birth of Fauvism, which was another art movement. So that's kind of where it fills in that section. I would say that Paul Cézanne is the father of post-impressionism, but we're not looking at him today. We're going to be looking at Vincent van Gogh, due to the fact that he's probably the most recognizable of all of the post-impressionist artists, even among non-art people. So we're going to be looking at this particular painting because, again, this is one of the most recognizable paintings from that period of art. We recently talked about Impressionism and Claude Monet, and I would say Vincent van Gogh is up there with Claude Monet as far as popularity from this period of art. So looking at the Starry Night, a little background on that. In December of 1888, Van Gogh actually had a mental breakdown, and if you look at paintings, he's missing an ear. He actually, severed his ear, and it ended up him being moved to an asylum after that mental breakdown. And so the interesting thing is some of his most famous works of art were done while he was in this asylum. So it just goes to show no matter, what's going on, you can make something beautiful of the situation you're in. And so he ended up in Arles in France at a monastery that was turned into an asylum. And it was pretty empty when he arrived there, but it typically catered to more of your wealthy individuals and so forth. So it wasn't really full, which allowed him kind of a little more privacy and quiet and peace that was probably good for his soul. So during this time, he actually made, the most famous works of art that we know him for, like irises or his blue self-portrait and so forth. And then he made the Starry Night, which was made in 1889. It is an oil on canvas. And just some interesting things. It was actually a view from his room at the asylum. And this same view he actually painted multiple times, but this would probably be the most famous of that view. But it was an actual view from his bedroom window in Arles, and he just painted that scene, at night. And let's see, for colors that were used, this is kind of interesting to note, the color palette. Pigment analysis has been done at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, which is where this painting is housed today. So if you wanted to see it in person, it is actually not in Europe or at the Van Gogh Museum. It is actually at the Museum of Modern Art, or the MoMA, in New York City. So pigment analysis has shown that the colors used for this painting were ultramarine, cobalt blue, and then for the stars and the moon, he used a rare pigment called Indian yellow along with zinc yellow. So those are like the main colors he used for this sky scene. So if someone was wanting to try and replicate it, do like a copy, like a copyist version of it, those would be the colors, to use, which is just kind of interesting, the limited palette that he used, and he created such a remarkable work of art. So that concludes today's discussion on The Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about this famous work of art that we see on so many things like t-shirts and mugs and so forth. But I hope this gave you a little bit of insight into the artist and the period of art that it represents. We hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Be sure to subscribe and check out more episodes as we travel through the world of art and art history to have a better understanding of our own ties to the culture and history of humanity.